I'm Author Function,
I'm Galvan.
and this is the Secret Boss Podcast, where we talk about the best auteurs in gaming, whether they deserve that title or not. And today we are talking about Stephen Mortimer, a person whose games were not meant to be played by podcasters years after they were released. Because Mortimer specializes in a lot of communal live service games made for very specific periods, for very specific services, many of which are either gone or the games have changed so much where it's difficult to talk about their evolution.
Right, and they're communal, so and what's more isolating than listening to a podcast? You loser.
Yeah, and lots of user-generated stuff that is near impossible to access, and many of these games just aren't really available to play anymore, which is very sad. Stephen Mortimer is also a person who has a lot of games that are, let's say, going to be difficult to interpret through an tourist lens. Mortimer works in a lot of more corporate structures, and I would call more journeyman kind of titles, where the studio is sort of telling you, like, hey, we want you to make this game. There is some leeway on how it's going to be made, but there is some difficulty in getting your own vision out there if you have one. And we can start with some of Mortimer's earliest work, where he was not even called a designer, but instead a project lead, which is something that is more associated with software than game development, in my experience. Mortimer came right out of college into Nintendo. He went to Digipen for schooling. He got an internship at Nintendo, and he just right out of college went straight into working on their games in Nintendo of America. He worked on the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series for several years in their game design section, and he eventually got the chance to lead his own project. And the game here is Crosswords Plus for the 3DS. And this is a game where you do crosswords within the 3DS software.
So we're just starting right here. We're just starting at his opus. We're not gonna go up to the top of the mountain. We're just starting at the peak.
Yeah, I was honestly considering not including this one because it gets into, like, is this a game territory, or is this software that presents other things? I think it's interesting that Mortimer was called a project lead on this, because part of this podcast is trying to find an autorial vision in basically anything that we see, but it's really difficult to do this for a game, which is to present crossword puzzles that I'm pretty sure someone else made. Someone else was credited with design, and I have to assume that means that this other person designed the crossword puzzles.
But what about the plus? It's called
The
Crosswords
plus.
Plus. There has to be something else there, right?
Well,
What
there are
about
also anagrams and word searches.
Take that, New York Times. Oh my goodness. I have a confession to make, a dirty confession. I've actually legitimately, unironically played this game a year before we even considered doing this episode by myself.
Really? Just organically? How did that happen?
I like crosswords, like, in general. I like playing them, and I like looking out for, like, new versions of them. Like, I'm doing New York Times and, like, Washington Post stuff, but I'm like, wherever is interesting. And I'm like, what do cheaper crosswords look like? And I was just scrolling through the 3DS menu one day when I found it. And I played it for like 3 minutes, and I was like, not even thinking about an arterial vision. But if you asked me then, I would be like, no person worked on this. This is AI generated. This is an AI generated game. I'm not
I would
convinced.
never stoop that low. But
The warmth of humanity touched this game. It's like the most generic thing you could think of. It's
yeah. I don't know what you can say from an auteur lens here, because the crossword is a very well-established genre, and if there is, like, creativity within the scene, and there absolutely is, then that's probably going to be within the person who was designing the crosswords, and not with the project lead. Do you have
But
any?
even here though, the human warmth when it comes to writing the clues, it's like, what, like I chose medium difficulty, and one of the clues was, what's the opposite of left?
Yeah,
Opposite of left, 5 letters. Please feel free to write back if you get the answer to that, listeners.
This is a fairly easy crossword thing. I never really had a lot of difficulty. I guess if we are going to be talking about some of the things that it does differently in the digital space, the game does have a hint system. It is made in order to have an audience who isn't really familiar with it, and probably a lot of kids going to be playing the game. And it gives some support through digital means where you can spend little hint points in order to gain answers to some of the more difficult selections. It does limit your ability, so it really wants you to like think about the crossword before you resort to hints. So that is an element of design I think uh, you can find there outside the traditional crossword puzzle.
I
And there is
think
also,
you do
yeah,
also find it in like every digitized version of the crossword. Like you look up New
that is
York Times crossword, Washington Post crossword, you also see that. Unless you want to claim that Mortimer invented it. I mean, I don't know. He
no,
could have.
I'm not saying that, but it does show a sort of design ethos as well as a progression system. So all the puzzles are like labeled easy, medium, and hard, and there is like progress within different like I want to say like you would see in worlds in Mario, and then there'd be like little levels individually. Each page has like a really small crossword puzzle that grows larger and larger into a big crossword puzzle, and then you go to the next page, they'll do the same thing: small crossword puzzle, larger, larger, larger crossword puzzle. Um, the problem I have with this game is that it gates off the harder puzzles for you, uh, where you can't access the hard ones right off the bat if you're already familiar with the crossword, which I think is frustrating. But I think that this is something that kind of is informed by Mortimer's work at Nintendo and also his college education, because Mortimer actually like went to college and school for game design, which a lot of people in like the early years of video games did not do because that didn't exist. And in more recent years, indie developers are often informal training, or they have other experience in like writing or just playing games, I guess, or programming. But Mortimer just went straight to school for game design, which is a very legitimate career path, and it's a legitimate way to learn how to make games. But it's far from dominant as opposed to like other industries where college is like where you're supposed to go. This feels like very by the books game design to be gating off progress for other players. So there's like a ideal of meta progression where you are like obviously progressing through these crossword puzzles, but there has to be something that's like keeping you within the game in order to keep coming back to it and being like, oh, okay, I have this little confetti when I beat everything, and I want to be able to have this entire row filled out so I have like visual confirmation of my progress. So that is my my strongest take on an editorial vision for Crosswords Plus. I hope I did a good job there.
Have to admit, I'm not convinced. You did your best. You did your best. I have to say though, that's honestly really brave of him. Or not brave. I feel like it's condescending, but it's inspired that he won the game design. I feel like that early because I feel like I don't know. It definitely wasn't like an established thing in colleges. Probably not to have
Yeah,
classes.
yeah. DigiPen was like the first game design college, and this would have been in like the early 2000s, so it was really, really early in that kind of thing. And Mortimer is also one of the youngest lead designers
Oh wow.
at Nintendo pretty much ever, because he was doing that almost immediately after coming out of college. So that really is an accomplishment, and I
Yeah.
feel like I'm going to be a little bit hard on these games in the future, but any game is like a miracle. It's amazing to get any kind of game out, and it's very difficult to do, and later on he's going to have some very difficult tasks when balancing some live service games. And yeah, I want to say that I hold a lot of admiration for Stephen Mortimer, but also it is not exactly what you might think of when thinking of a video game auteur. So you're gonna have to bear with me.
Now I'm just thinking of like Mortimer getting out of college, getting immediately accepted in Nintendo of America, which is probably his dream. He's got this first assignment. Yes, my lead project. What's it gonna be? Crosswords Plus for the 3DS, and he's like running around his room. Yes, I got a job at Nintendo. I'm a project lead.
I mean, like, it is disappointing to not get to do your dream project or whatever, but it is still like a very important step up. It shows a lot of resilience.
Yeah, it's a
It's
stepping
the
stone.
equivalent of doing Piranha 2 in order to move on with your career.
Or is it like they have to do like the Roger Corman movies basically to
Yeah,
move
yeah. You
on to
gotta do
the
your Roger Corman, or else you're
except the
not a
Roger
real
Corman movies
director.
are like they don't have they're just like shovelware basically. Dang.
You gotta make a gingerbread man before you can build a gingerbread house.
I wonder how many like future auteurs will cover that did like Penguins of Madagascar for the Nintendo DS as their first game or something like that. Probably got to be a
Uh,
numerous amount, right?
Probably more than you think, but
Yeah.
less than there are. So we'll see.
Okay. Anyways,
All
what do you
right.
make after?
After this, I'm going to have to check because it's a Mario versus Donkey Kong game, and to be honest, they are all very interchangeable to me.
Yeah, I did get confused looking for the titles for this game,
Okay, so
but
I'm gonna quickly go over the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. Donkey Kong 94, masterpiece on the Game Boy, one of the best puzzle platformers ever made. Mario vs. Donkey Kong, kind of like Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy Advance. It's all right. It's like a lesser version. It's still a puzzle platformer though. After that, basically when Mortimer comes on, as a coincidence, not causation there, Mario vs. Donkey Kong completely changes genres. It becomes a kind of like timed puzzle genre, kind of like Lemmings, where you're supposed to be moving around these like little mini Mario's in order to solve miniature puzzle challenges. And the series goes. He started working on Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, March of the Minis. He did game design on that, and Minis March Again, Miniland Mayhem. And he finally became a director for Mario vs. Donkey Kong 5, Minis on the Move. And this is, I
the
really
most
had to think
confusing
about this.
franchise of all time. If I'm understanding this correctly, the first Mario vs. Donkey Kong did not have the robotic animatronic Marios.
I think that they might have like story importance, but I don't think that they're like a main part of the game. They're definitely
But you
not a main
weren't
part of the
playing
gameplay.
as
You play
them.
as Mario in Mario vs. Donkey Kong, which you don't
Yeah.
for any of the later games.
Why is it like this? I don't know. It's so weird. And I do have to say, playing the rest of the franchise, I mean, it is kind of fitting that they all are confusing titles because they have mini in them. Because I think they're all the same game, basically. I feel like I'm disparaging this guy maybe too much, but I feel like they're all level packs for the same general game. They don't really put like a fresh twist on them. What do you think?
I'm going to have to disagree. Minis on the Move is definitely very different. I haven't played 2 through 4, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series.
Okay, well,
Um,
hang on here.
but like those are 2D sort of platform puzzle games like Lemmings. But Minis on the Move is kind of like a pipe puzzle game where you're supposed to create a pathway for a mini Mario to go on in a top-down 2D perspective, and you have to do this by dragging different tiles that have different pipe directions. It's going to go like left or right or straight, and you have to create a path that will get you to the end of the game, getting all the keys and collectibles. That like obviously that isn't everything. They introduce new mechanics that build on top of their core mechanics. Um, but it is a game that requires you to do the same sort of progression thing, like in Crosswords Plus, which can be pretty annoying for me. I played for like an hour and I was still in the tutorial, and I found that very frustrating to do in a puzzle game. When it's like, okay, I understand these mechanics. I know I have to drag these tiles to make a path. I don't need to keep doing this. So yeah, I found that a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, you bringing that up made me realize, yeah, that it's true. It does differ between games. One has pipes, one has tiles, one has like girders that you draw between different like bolts to
Whoa,
create
whoa,
them
whoa!
out of existence.
Spoilers for the next one.
Well, sorry, I'm sorry for ruining it for people who are playing chronologically from one through 1 through 5.
There are so many Mario vs. Donkey Kong fans who play all 6 games. Anyway, Minis on the Move. Um, I kind of just have to continue this. It's a very by the book video game in terms of progression and style. It is very much in that like Nintendo style where there isn't much of a story and you're getting straight to the gameplay, and it's going to sort of force you to learn the concepts before you're able to move on to a lot of the bigger stuff. That is like especially in Nintendo's sort of casual era. Do you have any more
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
Well, I do have something I want to bring up. This game was a surprisingly large amount of my childhood, like seriously, and I had to revisit it by going back to this episode. I don't think it was Minis on the Move. It was the DSi version, which is not necessarily like a light version. It's kind of includes levels from Minis on the Move, but it's also just like a lighter version in general. It's interesting because from what I can tell, you have less control over the minis in the DSi version, which actually leads to like a surprisingly stressful experience. Like it actually did add challenge where I was like, okay, this is interesting. And it's from them taking away one of the features where you can't really control the animatronic Marios as well as you can in the full DS versions. If you're going to play one of these games, which I don't recommend you do, I recommend that you find some better use of your time entirely. But if you're going to play one of these games, try playing the DSi version because I thought it was relatively interesting. I really don't know how to describe this game without sounding like nostalgia, but something imprinted on me when I was playing this game as a kid. Something about like extremely I want to say stripped back visuals. Like the opening cutscene is just a bunch of JPEGs moving, and at the end of every level, when you finish it, you have to watch like a 2 second cutscene of Mario going "way to go" before moving on to the next level. And it's like uncanny valley stuff. I don't know. It really freaked me out when I was a kid, to be honest. And playing back on it now, I was like, yeah, no, this is weird, right? This it doesn't feel like an official Nintendo game. I think that's what's weird about it. Like it didn't put like the full Nintendo Japanese budget behind it. You can tell this was like Nintendo of America game, you know? Obviously they got better on that front later, but I feel like they didn't have much funding early on when it comes to Nintendo of America, especially with DSi weird stuff.
Yeah, this was definitely like a smaller team. I think that Mortimer said that it was like less than 40 people he worked with when he was making these games. So definitely a lower budget kind of title. But I do think that like the still CGI kind of thing is like an effective tool for basic storytelling on a budget. I kind of like that, and I really don't see that very often anymore. I think that kind of stopped after the 3DS ended and portable games just kind of were relegated to mobile games. Um,
I can
but
appreciate that now, but like as a 7 or as like a
oh
6
yeah,
year old, when I was playing New Super Mario Brothers, which was the big thing they all hyped up, and then immediately switched to this, I was like, what happened? Something, this is something really weird. Other thing, which
interesting.
is really weird, in the introduction cutscene, Mario is just going like, oh, oh. And playing it now, it was like, okay, they couldn't get Charles Martinet to voice it, I'm guessing, because they didn't have enough of a budget. When you close the DS, when you're playing the game, Mario says in full words, oh, you're going away from my game? And that freaked me the fuck out because I had never seen a DS do that before. And also, I didn't expect Charles Martinet to be in this game. Because it's like, imagine closing the DS and Mario's like, oh, you're leaving so soon? What the fuck?
That
It
happens when you
freaked me
close the
out.
DS. Like your DS
When
is
you,
closed, and then it
in
will still
sleep
talk to
mode,
you.
it says that as you close the DS, yeah. Which is
Oh
crazy.
my god,
Imagine if you're in a restaurant and you just do that, then your volume's up.
that is so funny. I love that. Imagine just putting that on, putting any game on sleep mode, and the main character will just berate you for
Yeah.
for stopping your play.
No
Uh,
other DS game I've ever seen has done this, except this one, which is so weird.
That's crazy. Jeez. Anyways, next is Mario vs. Donkey Kong 6 Tipping Stars, which is a more traditional lemming style Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. This one revolves around sort of auto moving mini Marios that are going around 2D stages, and you have to use the DS to like draw little paths for them to go on, make them go up and down hills, and to get them across gaps. And these are like little single screen puzzles for them to navigate. And I don't want to disrespect the fundamentals of level design as opposed to like systems design. Like making the systems is not everything in a game. But again, it is difficult to find an autorial vision within these levels. Like they are effective. They teach you the mechanics in a way that a child can understand it, and they do intensify the difficulty across levels. And there is definitely a sense of progression, and it will visually show you like, okay, you made progress, good job. And they're little satisfying little puzzles, but at the same time, what autorial vision can I get out of this? This is gonna be real difficult.
This one was so bare bones. Yeah, I like. I really can't emphasize how bare bones like the UI presentation, like everything around the game is. I think I figured it out while I was playing this game because this is the first Mario versus Donkey Kong game I played while doing research for this podcast. I did the DSi one later, and I was like, I kind of remember like a kind of evil aura about the series, but it's been a while. It's been a few years since I was traumatized as a kid, so I'm gonna go back into this with like a new, fresh mindset. And I was playing this, and I was like, I know what's evil about this franchise. It's a mobile game. This is like exact mobile game UI like presentation, even down to the 3 stars they give you for like how much of a score you get at the end of every level. That's like from cut the rope basically. So it's like all the UI has been drained out. There's only a level select. There aren't like cutscenes in between anything. It's just like move on to the next level, move on to the next level. It's all scores, all mechanics, which is fine for a game. But I don't know. If this is like 2015 if I remember right, and if I downloaded this for the 3DS, I don't know. It would be like I downloaded Crosswords Plus, I guess. I don't know. I'm not being very kind this episode. I don't know. Something
Yeah,
about this rubbed me the wrong way.
I want to be kind to the people who make it, um, Mortimer and like the rest of the team. I think it's very effective. I think it's well designed. But there is like something kind of overall about the context of this game is that it feels kind of soulless and corporate just due to the nature of being a Mario spin-off downloadable title with a limited budget and vision that is kind of adhering pretty strictly to the sort of stereotypical Nintendo design and aesthetic. Um, like there is very little going on within like the world building or the lore or the story outside of like you have to defeat Donkey Kong. The main characters are going to be Mario and Donkey Kong, and maybe like Peach or Pauline or something. And you're going to see a little cutscene that's going to be setting up the stakes, and then you're just going to be playing the game, and you're going to go through level by level and having like sort of quick disposable fun that you're supposed to play while you're on the bus um, for 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, I don't know. They're like Tic Tacs, I guess. You eat them and then you kind of just forget about them after a while. I mean, the thing is,
And I love Tic Tacs.
the game design like works. I mean, to be clear, I'm not disparaging the game design. As you can tell, I haven't talked about the level design at all, and that's because it does exactly what it's supposed to do. Like there are clear signifiers that allow you players to get to the end of the level without being too obvious about it or like shoving text box in the player's face. I like that. It's just the stuff around it. I guess I don't. I would have killed for the 3DS version to have Mario say a little thing when I close the DS. Like that would be so much pizzazz if Mario was like, "Thank you for playing my 3DS game." If I close the 3DS, but nope, we lost all that.
Yeah.
Soulless.
It's like the Illumination animated movies of games. It's like, yeah, this is a fun little thing.
Wouldn't it be good if that was his trademark, like Mortimer's trademark, that to have characters say things to you when you leave the game? When you alt tab out of TFT and Timo's like, "I'm Timo." Like,
As Timo always says, I'm Timo.
That's his catchphrase. You don't know League of Legends lore?
And now that you've mentioned TFT, we can move on to Mortimer's next game and current game that he's worked on for the past at least 6 years, Teamfight Tactics, which is a League of Legends spin-off game. So after he finished work on Mario vs. Donkey Kong Tipping Stars, Nintendo contacted him and it was like, hey, we're going to have you signed up for another Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. And at some point, Mortimer's like, I don't want to keep on working on Mario versus Donkey Kong, because he wasn't like the lead or anything, but he was working on Project Hammer, which was like supposed to be one of Nintendo's like big AAA mature games on the Wii, which got canceled. Which he has said that he's been like disappointed that he was not able to work on Project Hammer anymore. It seemed like he's just gonna get stuck in a rut of making Mario vs. Donkey Kong games. And I guess they were going to make Mario vs. Donkey Kong 7 without him, because there still isn't a Mario vs. Donkey Kong 7. They made a remake of the first game, but no new Mario vs. Donkey Kong, so I guess
they realized they wouldn't be the same without him,
Yeah.
It would just be soulless.
Exactly. Anyway, Mortimer would go on to Riot Games in the mid 2010s. He would work on some specific game modes. League of Legends has little mini game modes that are unplayable today. I think he worked on League of Legends Odyssey, which I did not play, and I cannot play because League of Legends is a live service game. This is the first live service game we're going to be talking about. From reading online, it seems like people really liked this Odyssey game mode. Looking at the League of Legends subreddit and going like, oh yeah, that's a game, and it's a game mode where there's sort of a degree of, I want to say, creativity compared to the original game of League of Legends, where people were it's sort of a mode to play for when you get bored of the main mode, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna try to use the exact same kind of gameplay but in sort of different context. That is all I can say for Odyssey, a game that does not exist. I cannot play, you cannot play, and for all we know has like disappeared into the void.
So what was it about? What would you do in the game?
Let's see, I think it is hard to keep track of all the game modes in League of Legends. I
There's a
think
lot of them.
Odyssey was, as opposed to a player versus player competitive game, I think that this was a player versus enemy game where you had like special items that were like overpowered and stuff and more interesting builds. This is I'm completely bullshitting here. I have no real idea, but that's what I think what the
Okay.
game mode was. I guess I could have like looked up more gameplay footage and everything, but I wasn't allowed to play it myself, and no one else is allowed to play it, so who cares?
Lost media.
Anyway,
Move on.
one other thing is that he also changed the leveling system in League of Legends. League of Legends had a system where you had to level up to 30 by playing a bunch of like games against bots and things. If you're getting to the competitive mode, you had to be level 30 so that new players weren't just getting into the random competitive mode and ruining the game for everyone who's more experienced. It would get in like in the middle of the elo system because that's how elo systems work. And Mortimer expanded this by saying like, hey, you can level up as many times as you want now. You can get to the hundreds, you can get into the thousands, as long as you keep on playing games and you'll get rewards for doing this. So this is his job, and it was very effective, but also this is kind of like an insidious live service model kind of thing. Whereas like we want you to be playing this game as much as we can, and we want you to like have some confirmation that you're progressing, that you're moving up. Even when you're losing games over and over again, you're still gaining experience, gaining levels, and you're still getting rewards. So keep on playing our game. Which I'm not going to blame any individual for this, but it is frustrating that that is the direction that live service games and a large part of the game industry is going, because it's like really trying to encourage you to play as much as you can. And this is fun for a lot of players. This is strictly describing good game design. In the traditional sense, it is getting players to have more fun, getting players more engaged, but at the same time, it can lead to addiction cycles, and it can get into sort of the difficult and insidious microtransaction live service model that is also kind of feels a little bit corporate and soulless.
Yeah,
But that is
it's
a
a
major
bit
contribution he had.
it's a bit casino coded. Yeah, it's like them talking about machine time, how long each player spends on the machine. I feel like that's just baked into the live service games for me. But I feel like, I mean, obviously, live services games they don't have to be like that. You know, that's just something that's a convention now. If there's any solace we can take in live service games is that one day they will be dead and nobody can play them, which is a beautiful thing to say about League of Legends.
We got a resident legal League of Legends hater over here.
My entire high school friend group, they all played League of Legends, and I joined, and I was like, should I get into League of Legends? And they were all like, no, don't play this game. You can be our friend, but don't play this game. Like, straight up, they were like, stay in the voice chat, do not download the game. None of us want to play it, and we keep getting in matches.
Jeez, that's horrible.
Yeah,
Ugh,
yeah, not a very good game, I have to say.
that's sad. I enjoyed my time playing League of Legends. I played a little bit, but yeah, I can definitely see those sort of addiction cycles happening. I don't think that really happened to me, but it did happen to me with Teamfight Tactics. I love Teamfight Tactics. Is very effective getting me to play as much Teamfight Tactics as possible. This is a spin-off of League of Legends. This was created like in the wake of Dota Auto Chess. So the auto chess genre happened in 2019. It was just some modder for Dota who created this own little genre, and then immediately it got tens of millions of players, and suddenly like every other company was trying to make their own auto chess game. And out of all those other games, Teamfight Tactics is basically the only one that's still alive and still like kind of thriving. Basically, the auto chess genre and Teamfight Tactics is a game where you have a sort of like drafting card game where you are picking up lots of different units from a display, and you're spending money to get these units, and then use that money to place the units onto the board, and you face another player, and whoever wins that game gets more gold, and the player who loses, they lose health, and it becomes an elimination round. The bottom four players are considered the losers, and the top four players are considered the winners, and obviously you want to get at the highest place, but really placing the top half is winning within the eyes of the game.
Wow,
And
I didn't know about the bottom four and top four thing. Can you guess why? Can you guess why I didn't know?
because you're always bottom four.
Let's move on.
I've dipped my toes into the other auto chess games, but it's pretty clear why Teamfight Tactics was the biggest and is the only one that has continued to survive, because Teamfight Tactics does a really good job of like giving a really diverse and interesting gameplay experience. Like no two games of Teamfight Tactics are going to be the same, unless you try very hard to what they call force a comp, where you try to pick the same units over and over again. But otherwise, like there are lots of new strategies that come up within the game. It's like a mini roguelike, basically, where you're getting lots of different items and things, and you have to adapt based on what you're getting. And there's also like a competitive aspect to it. I compare it a lot to drafting games in trading card games. Obviously, randomness can screw everything up, but there's enough diversity and choice that the randomness is going to be mitigated throughout a longer term sort of competitive format. I think that's something that Mortimer has described in a lot of his game design, is that he really wants to encourage this idea of having crazy moments that will have something new. He's really encouraged us through the use of prismatics, which are like really crazy big swings and randomness that are being added to the game. There are like prismatic traits, which will mean that your team can do something crazy powerful. Augments, which are big changes to the fundamental gameplay. Yeah, just lots of different ways to create new, interesting experiences for different players. And I played Teamfight Tactics for a very long time. I was near a top player. I topped out like in the top 120-ish players at some
Wow.
point in North America. I really like Teamfight Tactics, but I don't like when the competitive scene is around like a meta. I like it when you have to play flexibly to do all those random stuff. And a lot of time the competitive aspect revolves around that idea of forcing a composition where you're picking the same units over and over again every game, depending on what's strong. And I find that very frustrating and boring. So I no longer try to play Teamfight Tactics competitively.
Dang.
Yeah, and it's a game that changes a lot patch to patch as a live service game. They patch the game every 2 weeks. There was like a lot of trading card people who were playing the game at first. Hafu and Brian Kibler were like some major Teamfight Tactics players at the very start, and they went away because the game changes all the time and it's annoying to have to keep up with. But there's still a competitive scene, and I respect the people that are in it. But I think that it can be a little bit frustrating. But it's a game that is mostly made for the casual audience, which is kind of a difficult thing to do, especially
But
as the
Mortimer can do it.
design.
Yeah, Mortimer
Yeah,
can do
Mortimer
it.
can do it. So something that I find interesting about Mortimer and why I want to talk about him is, well, one, I want to talk about live service games because it's like an aspect that we're probably not going to be touching on very often within the format of the show. And also because Mortimer is like very engaged with the community for all of his games. When he was doing Mario vs. Donkey Kong, he was on YouTube, like sharing his levels and like trying to engage the very limited, to be honest, Mario vs. Donkey Kong community
Hey,
after he left
don't
Nintendo.
diss the Mario versus Donkey Kong fandom, okay? They will fuck you up.
Yeah, but he was very in depth about like the ideas behind how he structures the levels and what he's thinking about when he's doing them. And then after he left Nintendo, he started his own YouTube channel where he would criticize other games and talk about the design. And sadly, all those videos have been taken down. I think that he must have like privated them after he joined Riot. But I really wish I could have seen those because I found like a lot of use out of Mortimer's game design discussions. Because when he went to TFT, he's been like very engaged with the community. A lot of live service leads try to avoid a lot of community interaction because when you're doing a competitive live service game, the community will never be happy with you. They will always be angry, especially if your user base started in League of Legends, which is kind of infamous for that. But really, this applies to like any competitive live service game because the player base will want you to like change the game according to their tastes and strategies. And if they're losing, they're going to blame whoever's in charge, whoever they believe is like the person who is responsible for them losing all the time.
Yeah,
Which,
you're basically like the ref or the ump in every sports game that's happening simultaneously across the world.
yeah, this is kind of like a fairly unique part of gaming on tourism. Like, if you make a bad TV show, right, and you're the lead showrunner, you're probably going to have a lot of fans who are going to be harassing you. But if you're making a video game and you do everything right, you make the perfect competitive video game, people are going to be really, really mad at you because they're going to blame you for losing because you're the face of the game, and they have to like blame someone when they're not doing well, so they blame you. That's not to see that Mortimer has not made mistakes in his game design, but it is something that you're going to have to deal with as a live service lead. I think Mortimer has done a great job, and it's pretty amazing that he's been interacting with the community so much and talking about like the logic behind basically all of his decisions within the game and like describing what kind of behavior they're trying to encourage and what their design ethos is.
If anything, I feel like the fact that he's so vocal about it and continues to make these changes to Teamfight Tactics so frequently is proof that he is putting forward his own changes. That he doesn't care about the community pushing back too hard on him, you know? Because otherwise he would just like capitulate to every whim and desire that every person suggesting. But he seems to be very certain about what he's doing.
Yeah. Balancing a game in general is like really hard for a competitive thing. Like if you're playing chess, the rules haven't changed very much in the past few hundred years. But if you're trying to make a video game where you have to like keep adding content and balance things little by little, it's going to be very difficult for you to do, especially for like asymmetrical game design where everyone's going to be getting different units and everything. I'm not going to go too in depth about these balance changes and everything, because that's really something that only matters to like the upper 30% at most of the user base. But I think that is impressive for most of the user base. Like this idea of having lots of different randomness and changing throughout the game. Like augments are like a very core part of Teamfight Tactics. They are a change throughout the game. When you get to like every stage, basically, you pick one of 3 augments that will radically change the way you play. It'll say, "Hey, your units of this type, they get tons of extra damage, and also they spawn a new character every time they die." Or, "Hey, if you get all these characters and you clump them all together, they're all going to get shielded." Or, "Oh, hey, this character, they're going to completely change their gameplay style, and you're going to be able to build your entire team around it and still be successful." They're always trying to do new things for you, and that was added in set 6. There's always a changing set in Teamfight Tactics. They changed the game in different sets, where they completely changed all the characters, and like this was seen as like a standout feature. They're always trying to add new mechanics for each set, and Mortimer tries to take like the ones that create the most engagement and fun, and like keep on integrating them. And the game's gotten very complex over the years. This is a game I'm very experienced with. But Galvan, I want to hear what you felt as a new player.
Mario versus Donkey Kong on the Nintendo DS side to this was a bit of a switch, I have to say. I feel like I just got put in the baby mode. Over the past few months, I've been telling myself, I'm getting more into gaming, and I'm getting really interested in the medium. When I saw how many augments there were on the thing, how many power-ups were on the side, how many different heroes there were with all different stats, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go back to Crosswords Plus, because I was like, it's too complicated. It's too complicated for me. There's too many numbers, too many names. I'm sure I can get used to it, obviously. It's not a game that you're meant to play just a couple times for a podcast and be done with. You're supposed to soak into it. But yeah, I was just kind of completely overwhelmed with numbers here. And I kind of understood what I was doing. I was just pressing level up all the time so I could add more heroes. I was trying to pick augments that helped. But yeah, no, I died pretty quickly. I died pretty quickly.
Yeah, I have to imagine it's really difficult to get into, especially if you're not experienced in these kinds of games. I love drafting games. I love numbers. I'll play as many strategy games as I can because they're just so much fun to me. But Teamfight Tactics is surprisingly complicated, especially for like a casual game that's meant to be like played on a phone. What I do admire is that for such a complicated game, they try to encourage players to like have different compositions based on picking the same characters of the same type over and over again. Right now, it's set 15. There's a comp called Star Guardians, and basically every time you add a Star Guardian, it's going to make your whole Star Guardian team even better. So you just keep on clicking those Star Guardians for like an easy team composition. You're going to get reasonably far.
So it's like a good preset then.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a
that.
lot of like traits that are made to be sort of get all of these, and then you're going to be happy if you get all of them. But on a competitive level, it's very difficult, very complicated.
I'm sure it is. Yeah. Well, anything related to League is probably like extremely complicated when it comes to the meta. I want to say, I mean, I'm just pulling this out of my ass because you've played Teamfight Tactics a lot more, know a lot about the design more. But hearing about all this, do you feel like Teamfight Tactics and what he did earlier with the Nintendo work are complete opposites? Because I feel like with Crosswords Plus and Mario versus Donkey Kong, especially the latter, I think I could like ungenerously say that a lot of the games in the Mario versus Donkey Kong series are the same game, basically. It's like a very static design. Meanwhile, if he got so tired of it and moved to Riot Games to do other games, it would be interesting to do a live service game and like add all these features to constantly be switching things up, making the game like this evolving thing. I feel like the way you're describing it, League of Legends is like a static game in comparison to that. So I wonder if he's pushing for those changes. This is like way overstepping it, but this is what I'm thinking from hearing
To a degree, I think that's right. I think that like Mario vs. Donkey Kong was made like for a very specific audience within Nintendo's pretty like strict game design ethos that you're not supposed to be deviating too much from. But like Mortimer, I should mention that Mortimer came into the game as the lead at the very start of the release of the game. But before the release, it was like a like, sort of communal building experience. They made the game in 2 months to capitalize on the auto chess genre, which is like crazy. I saw like the design calendar, and it's just incredible that they made the start of this beta in 2 months. Like they were using tons of assets from League of Legends for basically all of this, but it's still like incredible that they did that. So like the initial bare bones mechanics of the game and overall structure is like not something that he was in charge of. But what I find interesting is that like as the game has evolved, and because he is the lead, he has like changed the game in order to like sort of suit his vision, even though it started as something that was like kind of honestly a ripoff of a mod someone else made, and like made very scrapped together in a short time period, making what they could, trying out all these different new mechanics every few months, and seeing like, okay, what's gonna stick? What do people like? What do people not like? Which is successful? And I love that kind of experimentation on a long scale. Like I said, it's good game design, but it is also a live service model that's trying to get you to play the game as long as possible and keeping things interesting over a period of time so things aren't too static. That's a real difficult thing. Talking about a lot of
Yeah.
games is that something can be fun. It can also like harness capitalism to pretty gross ends and still be a great game. It's kind of difficult.
Yeah, I will say the leveling thing in League of Legends is really sketchy to me. But I mean, from as far as I can tell, the teamfight tactics thing, when it comes to adding and switching in things and like sets and stuff like that, I think that's all very nice. Yeah, I think that's all done out of. I mean, it doesn't have to just only be done out of the goodness of its heart. It can also be done to get players to play more and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say it's like malicious, from what I can tell.
Yeah, I just feel a little bit cynical about big game companies sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the
But
solution is just to not play live service games ever.
yeah,
That's the real answer. You're all a bunch of wusses. You play one game, you fucking unoriginal hacks. Go play other games.
yeah. I mean, part of why I want to do this podcast is because I wanted to like play a diverse amount of games and like forcing myself to do that and not keep on playing Teamfight Tactics over and over again. Which in preparation to this game, I've played a lot of Teamfight Tactics over the past couple of weeks. It's a little disturbing, but I've uninstalled that. I have enjoyed my time, and I'm going to not play that again in the near future.
It's like when a mom catches their kid smoking a cigarette and they force them to smoke the whole pack so they don't get addicted. That's what you're doing to yourself right now, basically, with Teamfight Tactics.
Well, it also helps that I wasn't doing too well in the set. We're coming in like towards the end of the set right now, and basically everyone else has like knows how to play, whereas I'm still kind of when I was playing, I was still kind of learning what these characters did. So I was kind of have like a knowledge disadvantage. The game's a lot more fun when I'm winning, to be honest. But yeah, it's a fun game, which is the biggest sin of all. It's terrible.
Spoken like a real League player. It's only fun when I'm winning. I can't stop playing it.
And if I haven't done this enough, I really want to stress how great it is that Mortimer. I think it's really great that he like interacts with the community so much and will explain the reasoning behind his balance decisions and adding the mechanics and why some ideas work and some ones don't, and like the difficulty of balancing for both competitive and casual players, and also like being informative to an audience who isn't really receptive to being informed, because there's this thing, this happens like every competitive game, where people like completely misidentify what makes the game like feel bad for them, and like they'll say one thing and then a few months later when the game is different they'll say the complete opposite, trying to like explain why they're not doing well within the game, why they're not having fun. Mortimer is able to effectively explain like why he's doing things and sort of like call people out when they're sort of contradicting themselves, or like give counter examples to how the game is affected by different design decisions, because designing a competitive game is incredibly difficult. It definitely hasn't been perfect. There have been some major problems with TFT and their patches, but I think Mortimer has done a very good job within the role that he's been put in.
I agree. He sounds like he's doing a good job. I mean, all that work
Yeah.
with the extremely toxic Mario versus Donkey Kong fandom really toughened it up for the weaker stuff, for the League players. Yeah, the wusses.
Exactly. I think that's all I have to say. I hope that we never cover another live service person again, now that I've kind of given my screed on that kind of game.
You brought this on yourself. I did not recommend this guy.
Yeah, I recommended it. I want to talk about live service games, and I do respect Mortimer as a person. I did want to talk about him and his career, but I honestly I did mainly want to talk about the sort of live service genre, and I want to do it with the game I was fairly familiar with. Yeah, now that I think about recommendations, I don't think I would recommend his Nintendo work. I would recommend Teamfight Tactics for a very specific kind of person who is already playing League of Legends and needs an outlet to put their competitive work into that isn't League of Legends. That's who I recommend this game to.
So people who are already playing Teamfight Tactics.
No, people who are playing League of Legends. It's like when you get nicotine patches after you're trying to quit cigarettes. That's what Teamfight Tactics is. That's who I recommend this game to.
A lot of cigarette-based metaphors for this League of Legends episode. I wonder why. Me personally, I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence about recommending the DSi minis on the move game. I'm going to say no. I'm not going to recommend any games this episode. Sorry, but it is interesting to me as like a cultural object. Maybe if you played it as a kid, also you can go back and check it out because it's, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's fun, but it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm glad that we covered a more journeyman kind of person instead of like someone you might traditionally call an auteur within like the indie space or something.
Yeah, it's too easy to do like just auteur people, like people who have put their names on like every game and stuff like that. It just wouldn't be fair. You have to do the journeyman because it's about like looking into people and like doing the auteur for those people to recover like their humanity from these games that don't seem to have humanity in them. Anyways, our next episode is about Sylvie, who I've been talking about for such a long time. She's put her name on every single game. It's always been a Sylvie game, a Sylvie game, a Sylvie game. She is such an idiosyncratic mind. Everyone praises her. I'm just banking off of this as a joke. I'm sorry. She's not very well known, but I feel like
I think
we
she's
actually
well
want
known
to.
within like game design circles. I
Oh
think.
yeah, no, certainly. Like Bennett Foddy has called Bennett Foddy once unironically compared her work to the Mona Lisa. So I mean, the people really love her work. I mean,
How do we talk about Bennett Foddy in like every episode? How does this happen? Is he everywhere? What's going on?
I think he is, honestly. I think he is, yeah. Glorious Trainwrecks, Tig Source, he has his own blog. He's just the game design guy, I guess. I've been mentioning this the past 2 episodes. We've been playing her games, and she has like over 100 games. I don't think you didn't play all of them. I didn't play all of them, but we played
I don't think
most of
any
them. I'm pretty sure. I played. I mean, at least I'm pretty sure I played at least 50 of them. I feel like I have a good grasp on
50?
if
50?
yeah. I mean, well, a lot of them are very short, so
Okay. I really enjoyed Sylvie's games, and they are fascinating. They're really difficult, and they're willing to like use quote unquote bad game design. If Mortimer is a good game designer, he sticks by the book very well. Sylvie is willing to go outside the framework and do things that really no one would suggest that you do, but they end up kind of working anyway. And I'm very excited to talk about it.
yeah, me too.
Cool.
As always, I'm Galvan.
And I'm Author Function.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah. Goodbye. Fuck off.